Welcome back. I'm Alfred Weber, and we have a great 7 at 7 panel today. Seven's joining us from London, and from Norway, Base's own Miles Johnston. Welcome, Seven and Miles. I'm turning it over to you, Seven.
Greetings, Alfred, and thank you for having me on again, and I hope you're well. And greetings to our guest today, Miles Johnston of the Basis Project. How are you doing, Miles?
Well, it's hotter than hell here, but I have to say that we've been swimming today in the fjord, and due to the impending lockdown, second wave, which I'm convinced is going to happen in the UK, I jumped on a flight and just came here, and I made a decision. If I was going to be stuck anywhere, why not Norway? Yeah, so that's that.
Right, so you see, hold on a minute, I need to get some water. You think there's going to be another lockdown in the UK?
Lockdown is doing everything that the Rockefeller 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation 2010 report said they would do. So
right, that's the lockstep, right?
That's the lockstep thing, and it's been very well explained in a website which I can't currently recall, but it's been very well explained by a journalist, and the whole thing is 100% planned. The only thing which I don't think was planned was the early release of this bioweapon, which is a bioweapon insofar as it's primarily an economic weapon as opposed to a health kill you weapon. And right. the only aspects of this weapon are those who are the instruments of the Illuminati controlled governments of the world. One of the Basis interviewees that I interviewed, a guy called John Irwin, who frankly hated my guts from about 3 years ago. He was triggered when another member of the Basis, they're not members, but one of the other one person said they switched on a major attack against myself. And Irwin, spelt with a U, gave me some data about a week ago, essentially explaining that all the governments in the world are now 100%. He didn't say this. He's saying all the governments in the world are now Illuminati controlled. And there's a movie slide that he uses where basically it's a father with his child pushing a supermarket trolley along a desolate road as the complete collapse of civilization has happened on that film. And I don't know the title of it, but he keeps using that as a mechanism on his poster. Now, he hasn't had a civil word to say to me for like 3 years. And for him to send that, which I then used to illustrate that his information sources are saying that all the governments in the world are controlled by the Illuminati. They're running the show, and we're facing absolute catastrophic oblivion in terms of economic collapse. Now, for those of you who don't know who John Irwin is, he, in 1957, Britain still had conscription, and as soon as he turned to the age of 17 in 1957, he was immediately recruited into the British Army. Now, because of his certain abilities, cutting a very long story short, he was then essentially put into a British super soldier program in 1957. Now, his book, One Step Beyond the 16, basically refers to being trained by an extremely pale, white-skinned, strange-looking officer in Cyprus. I think it was Cyprus, in the Mediterranean, and he was essentially brought beyond death and trained in an extremely specialized fighting technique known as the machine. The fourth day of his training was to take all the stuff that he'd been trained with his conscious mind shut down, and then activating his conscious mind to then use all the stuff he'd been trained in his lower consciousness beyond death. Now, this is Max Spear's territory. So in 1957, the British military were running extremely secret teams, just known by their number, in this case, the 16. They were taking certain soldiers with specific talents, I'll only say that, and bringing them beyond death to other dimensions and times to show them the way the world really works and has worked, putting them and bringing them back into an extremely effective fighting package, a machine, using this technique called a machine. And they went in 1957 through 59, and they were killing a lot of Russians in the Middle East.
Wow.
And they were after a set of ancient data banks. Just think of an iPhone that's maybe 3,000 or 10,000 years old. And the British, they got 2 of them, and the British officer that was with them was able to read that data and activate it. And this crystal data bank with nodules on it, it looked silver and had a green look to it, but it was not the emerald tablets. This was part of about 9 data banks that were known to exist, containing ancient, high technology about interdimensional portals and space, the whole lot.
Wow.
But so they got that in 1959. Okay, so this was the stuff that the Illuminati already knew, and this secret team was fighting the Illuminati for the very things that are happening right now.
Wow.
So way back in 1957, in the mid 1950s, and I'm saying that already this team was already planned before World War II. That's the logic of the situation. That's not what he's saying. So there was already a secret band of elite fighting soldiers who knew about flying saucers, because this meeting that they obtained these things, 2 flying saucers took off from the desert at a place called Jaraba. The Middle East borders changed so many times since then. It's not really, it's near Syria, Jordan, and all that. These saucers took off. There was a Bilderberger type meeting. They went in, killed everybody, got these data banks, extracted them, and that's how we know about them today.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that was a lethal killing force to fight against the New World Order and the Illuminati all those years ago.
Wow, that's incredible. So in relation to, I mean, obviously we can see the whole world is controlled, and this whole pandemic has been in the works for a very, very long time. So, I mean, in response to it, I mean, I would say at least 3/3 of humanity have awakened. What do you think about people being aware of this plot now? I mean,
well, this is amazing.
This
is absolutely amazing. I mean, I've just jumped on an extremely uncomfortable new aerospace jet from London about 4 days ago, and they've put these atrociously uncomfortable chairs, which are designed for people of about 5 feet. So there's a plan that they are only going to be expecting to use a certain type of human, which is about 5 foot tall, because they're so uncomfortable you can't sit in them. They're the same seats which have been put on the new Hitachi trains, which are replacing a lot of the existing rail stock in England. Now, the reason why I say that is because why are they building a seat that's so uncomfortable a normal human being isn't going to want to sit on them? They must be designing them for something else, and they don't give a damn about the existing human beings in the way that they're planning. Okay?
Right.
So that's their mindset. So we landed here, bang, 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 pouring rain, absolute torrential rain. It's now beautiful weather here. That's the type of weather extreme which you must take note of. And I mean, we are southern Norway. We get hot summers here and very cold winters. Things are moving around in terms of climate. That's another subject. But the point was, Oslo, outside a cafe, a couple of guys having a cigarette. One's from Macedonia, and he was having a joke with the other guy because the other guy was from Greece and he couldn't pronounce the proper pronunciation of Macedonia. So these 2 guys are totally up to speed that this whole thing's a fraud. This is random. Just sit beside some guys having a coffee when you get off a plane, come to central Oslo, which beautiful city, fantastic city. and you get two complete strangers, completely up to speed with everything we're talking about right now, and that's beyond coincidence.
So to just go back to what you were saying about these chairs, who are they expecting? Who do you think is supposed to be sitting in these chairs?
Drones.
Ah.
Drones.
When you say drones, be a bit more
I'm
specific.
saying there have been aspects of where trains going from London to Bristol, which is the Great Western Railway, the Great Isambard King to Brunel Railway, sightings, they're going past quite a few military bases. They also go past Porton, and in 2014, there was a Welsh television program, Harlech TV program, which was made about how Porton, all released secrets, sprayed trains with bacteria to see how a pandemic would work. Now, they were doing it in case the Russians did it, but the Russians never did do it. But the British were very happy to spray lethal bacteria onto their own trains as they go into the tunnel there in the middle of Wiltshire and see how far it spread. They also did all sorts of lethal experiments out to see how things would blow in, and this is all documented. I mean, we're not talking science fiction. It's been on the TV, right?
Wow. So we have.
It's not unusual for the British to do targeting on their people. And on another subject on that level, Alfred Ness. Now, Alfred Ness is a peninsula, a sandbank peninsula on the extreme east of England, not too far from the Rendlesham Forest, Twin Base, Bentwaters and Woodbridge bases. Now, Alfred Ness is a sand spit that goes into the sea. It's very flat. And the United States had placed a whole pile of antenna systems there. And the reason why we know this is because a certain person, I will remain nameless, went into the library in England, in London, and they got the 25-year the declassified documents about beam weapon technology using high power.
Is that like blue beam? Do you mean like Project Blue Beam?
We're talking about all sorts of energy weapons that were being used on live targets. That's people, boats in the North Sea, live targets.
Yeah, well, we know that this is happening. We do know that. I know people it's being done to.
Yeah. But this is high power, high energy stuff using towers, hundreds of 200 or 300 foot tall towers, and beaming it out and seeing how the effect on living people was. Now, we know that because this person got the document which had been declassified. A friend of hers happened to, this is very interesting, took the document from her straight back to the Ministry of Defense, and then that document was given a 100-year secrecy.
Classification.
So we're only able to speak, and I'm telling you this from the person who knows the other guy who did the bringing it back. So we know that he's an agent. It's part of the British UFO community, which is riddled with MI5 agents.
So, I mean, people effectively, I mean, I'm a targeted individual, as you know, but effectively, we're talking about people are being tortured.
We're talking about extremely high power. Yeah. We're not talking about something like a microwave in the room next door. We're talking about extremely high power energy weapons run by the United States in defiance of the British government and just doing it anyway. At least that's what the British government will say. And they targeted ships or small boats full of living targets because they had to be alive, and killed them or did things to them which they could then study. Those were SSP, they were secret space program energy weapons of such power that they would only be useful if they'd be used out of orbit or in space. Now, this was very high power stuff over long distances.
Absolutely. I mean, people are complaining of this in the hundreds of thousands, Miles, if not the millions.
So
I mean, there have been reports of
Yeah.
over reports and
But this is not hocus pocus. This is from a declassified British secret document, which was, I would suggest, oh, we didn't mean to release that into the UFO community. One person who had eyes read it, got it, and then it was quickly taken back. And that's called an unofficial leak. And that's why I'm able to tell you about it. And a friend of mine, Matthew Williams, has gone and has done the video of that whole area. And he has, you can see that on YouTube, Warford Nest, there's the buildings there. They're all there. There's nothing's happening there now. But it's just a lot of buildings. It's a stark desert-like landscape, but it's actually right beside the North Sea. So this is, and of course, we know that at the Greenham Common base, the women there for 20 years protesting against cruise missiles were all targeted by microwave weapons. That's been in the newspapers, and it's fairly well known.
Right, so this is a phenomena that has increased over the last decade, and people like Romola D reports there was what did they call themselves? The investigation team into directed energy weapons and people being targeted has been exposed for a very long time. It's an illegal program. This is torture, Miles.
Well, they don't give a damn. So, they don't give a damn.
I mean, it's going from bad to worse here. Now, you said that the Illuminati's taken over most world governments.
This is from John Irwin. Now, this is very important because I am challenging. I'm hearing things that the White Hats are winning and all this sort of stuff. Things are going well, and I sincerely hope they are. But this is a source who. His fighting technique, he's in his 70s now, probably almost 80, 1957, he was 17, so whatever. And I mean, for him, I mean, he became hostile. A lot of the people I've interviewed then turn hostile. That's quite common. It's very uncomfortable when it happens, but it's a way of limiting the spread of their information. But that he was able to send the head of the SAS, which is meant to be Britain's most elite fighting force, the Special Boat Service and the Special Air Service, elite teams. He sent them packing because the kind of fighting technique that they use is booby trapped by the ancient societies. But that's a completely another story. So this is really serious stuff.
Yes, this is what's being reported by the actual victims themselves. Now, what's the connection with 5G then, would you say? Because obviously 5G potentially is also a direct energy weapon.
Well, the thing that I started looking at was that they were knocking off transgenic bionic cyborgs, biological robots in the British bases in Wiltshire and Hampshire. They got that information from the Germans, and the Germans had problems interfacing the neural control systems. And of course, we know that in today's world, Elon Musk is happy to have that done for you. So basically, my work is revealing British bases, English countryside, happy slappy land, England's green and pleasant land, and the most horrific things going on underground. And that goes back to World War II. It's why we have a National Health Service. It's why Project Paperclip was not just a bunch of Nazi rocket scientists building a couple of tin cans to fly up and have a nice distraction. It was an intricate takeover of the United States and Russia. In the last couple of years,
by the British.
The British were taken over with the psychological operations, the mind control, MK Ultra stuff, the National Health Service, where everybody's genetics are tested on the heel prick test. So the British are basically one big psyop, and the BBC is 100% involved with doing that.
Absolutely.
And right now, you're seeing this happen in your face in the United Kingdom. And we also had this coup d'etat against Boris Johnson, and there are questions as to who has emerged as the current Boris Johnston. Boris Johnson has no tenable position anymore as a prime minister, whether he's been replaced or not. because he was given a special drug, which is not that uncommon, to recover from whatever disease he had in hospital, which is being withheld by the National Health Service in his COVID situation. So you have a situation where the British Prime Minister has been given a drug with the help of Trump to get out of this, whatever he had. I'm not going to say what he had, but this
So
drug.
that wasn't a psyop. I thought that was all a psyop.
It wasn't. It was a psyop. It was anything, all of above. Tick all the boxes. Coup d'etat, psyop, the whole lot. And the particular drug that he got, Michael Shrimpton has written about in Veterans Today, and he was one of the speakers at my conference. And I'll be very blunt. Michael Shrimpton was playing the government line on everything. Michael Shrimpton is looking for a pardon for the false crimes of declaring false nuclear weapons at the London Olympics. He saved millions of people's lives. There were 2 dirty nukes from the Tursk submarine, stolen by secret intelligence operatives of the German intelligence service. They were brought to London. They were going to be used. By the time they would have been used, the yield would have been very low, but it would have been catastrophic, and they would have had a Russian signature, and this was designed to get the British and the Americans to attack the Russians. So the Russians are very happy with Mr. Shrimpton for finding those weapons, but secret operatives with the British government, which is riddled with agents and severely compromised, threw him in jail, and he lost his career, and he's hoping to get a pardon for the crimes that he was falsely arrested on. And there's been a couple of other nasty little crimes he's been arrested on, which he's proved are completely false. So the lecture that you would see, and also the lecture he gave, the interview he gave with Kerry Cassidy, is very lamestream and is playing pretty well a government narrative. And he's basically saying it'll all be over by Christmas. Take the vaccine. He'll take it. Everything's going to be happy.
Wow.
Boris Johnson will probably be replaced as Prime Minister because he's untenable round about early next year. That's what he's saying. And he's a member of the Conservative Party. And I think he's, as they say, trying to keep his nose clean at the moment so he doesn't ruffle too many feathers, apart from all the feathers he's already ruffled.
So he basically spilled the beans, because we all knew in 2012 during the Olympic ceremony that there was something was about to kick off. It was very, very clear to anybody who knows Operation Mockingbird. We knew that it was going to be a new court. It was going to be something was being staged. It was in your face. And so he was amongst the men, because it wasn't just him that was outing this situation. There was people, the
BBC did a drama on it. The BBC Three did a whole TV show on it about a nuclear weapon going off at the London Olympics.
Absolutely. And so basically nobody attended, and the seats were empty because everybody became hip to the fact that there was a definite false flags scheduled for the Olympics. But then we also see, in regards to the Olympics, the whole pandemic, because they had a huge corona sort of graphic, if you like. They had the nurses, the hospital beds, like we've seen in the Nightingale scenario.
And on that very subject, I understand tonight that they're going to reactivate the Nightingale hospitals. But one of the biggest Nightingale hospital in the UK was in the London ExCeL, which is a huge exhibition centre.
The ExCeL Centre.
And I'm a member of the broadcast video exhibition. I get notifications because I was still trying to work in TV here, trying to keep our jobs with 3,500 odd people in broadcasting out of work at the moment because of all things like that. But the broadcast video exhibition centre was turned over, and the London ExCeL normally hosts the broadcast video exhibition centre in the early part of the year, around about February, early sort of part of the year. Now, last August, the broadcast video exhibition people cancelled. and they cancelled a major broadcast exhibition for their own particular reasons. But it just so happens, it seems, that they had foreknowledge that they wouldn't be having any exhibition anyway, because we would have the Nightingale Hospital built at that time.
Right.
And that's exactly what happens. So the one thing about television is you can't hold a big crisis unless you get it good on TV. And if you're going to get it good on TV, you got to tell a few people about it, you know, with the right handshake and the right tie. So they actually made a gaffe by doing that. So it means that the major broadcast equipment manufacturers, the main outside broadcast companies, they must have been briefed about this pandemic in July last year.
Absolutely. If we are looking at the lockstep document, which goes back to 2010, then we know that this will have been in the works for a very long time, and it was about execution. Because obviously we've had bird flu, we've had swine flu, we've had Zika. They've tried to do this a number of times, I believe. And obviously this is desperate measures because, you know, humanity
the one person who blew the whistle on this 10 years ago was Dr. Rauni Kilda, who was first, she was former chief medical officer of Finland. And I recorded a clip from only just down, literally across the road from here. She was targeted, she was taken out with, but that's another thing. Dreadful.
She was murdered, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. And
Alfred,
we were here
very well,
helping her in her last days or hours before she, anyway, it was just across the road from here.
Wow.
So that they were blowing the whistle, she was blowing the whistle on that, and that clip was taken down from YouTube. It got something like 390,000 hits in 2010, and in 2009, I think it was, and then it was moving over to 2010. The European Union were asking serious questions about the swine flu, or I think it was the swine flu. Because they hadn't used any of their stock of vaccines in the first place, and they were committed to a second purchase of vaccines, and they started asking serious questions from an accountancy expenditure point of view, and that clip was being used. YouTube banned it. But it seems funny that YouTube reactivated that clip only a few months ago.
Wow.
Now it's
because
corrupt.
I do remember she did some great talks about, you know, she was one of the main whistleblowers at the time who had credibility because obviously she was from Finland and she had great credentials. She was an amazing woman, absolutely fearless, amazing woman.
She was one of 3 Westerners brought into a major conference in Moscow. And the 2 other people that were allowed to come to this extremely important UFO conference in Moscow, which was run by the Russian cosmonauts. This was at the highest level. And they had this huge room with all sorts of places where UFOs had been seen and landings and all sorts of stuff. This was run by one of the cosmonauts, Pobovovich, I think. But the other 2 Westerners were a couple of part-time military people who had some kind of influence on the United States and NATO. Some guy called Stubblebine, have you heard of him? And another guy called John B. Alexander. Now, Stubblebine was in charge of the NATO surveillance detection system. He was one of the highest-ranking officers ever to walk into a UFO conference in Moscow. And Colonel John B. Alexander was in there as well with his wife-to-be.
Who's his wife? Because there's a Helen
that's
Alexander
19. That's 19. I don't know. This is a good 20 years. It's way back. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
He's not. He's not. He doesn't like me either.
Well, what can we say? We can't have everybody like us. We just
he gave me information that there was a Bentwaters incident before the main Rendlesham Forest Bentwaters.
There was a what incident?
There was an identical incident at the Bentwaters and Woodbridge bases in 1977 involving five saucer-type craft, small saucer-type craft, and five triangular craft, all landed together in the forest beside the runway at RAF Woodbridge in 1977.
Right.
So that is all secret space program stuff.
Right.
Okay. Now he explained that to me at an interview, which he referred to a number of other incidents. Now he didn't specify the particular incident. That incident was referred to by another investigator. The British investigators of the Rendlesham Forest case are being effectively sidelined, and Gary Heseltine, who runs UFO Truth magazine, is trying to get a film out on all this. But that's taken a year and a day. In fact, it's taken 2 years and a day, but it hasn't come out yet.
So tell me, Mark.
Which means that there was a secret space program involving ETs, which was exposed by the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident, because they knew whatever was coming in was damaged, and they knew about it because the transport craft that came from Germany to pick it up must have been in flight by the time this thing landed.
Wow. This is in 19...
This is the December 1980 UFO incidents.
Okay.
Now, when a very similar incident involving similar craft happened in 1977, 3 years before, this isn't any big deal.
Tell me, what brought you to this line of inquiry, Miles? Because your background primarily was media as well, wasn't it?
Well, I've been in TV and pirate radio. I've been able to put on the two most powerful FM pirates that ever broadcast on the Irish border. There's no security issues on the Irish border. You just nip in there, set up a 180-foot tower, stick 1 million watts on it, no problem at all. Twice. And then so that was my background. But I'm former BBC. I'm trained as the broadcast engineer, and so I do the tech side of television. And I'm at the twilight of my career, and so I run my own studio out of my broadcast facility in Wiltshire.
Okay, so when you look at the media now, I'm going to come back to the question is what brought you to the line of, investigation and the BASIS project and all of this. But when we look at the media, when you look at the media as somebody who was from the BBC, and you look at the narratives that are being pushed out there today, where people are being told to wear a mask and that there's this pandemic and this, false flag after false flag, all this pedophilia is going on. When you look at the mainstream media as somebody who's spent, however long you've been in there, decades, working, what say you, Miles? Because obviously a large part of the damage that we're seeing to humanity is the peddling of these lies and the perpetration of these lies and these absolute falsehoods that totally control people's lives. The impact and the buck has to be brought back there, because had we not had these media organizations pushing out this propaganda, churning it out day after day, we wouldn't have the situation of businesses going bankrupt, people being terrified inside their houses, people being forced to suffocate themselves with
when
masks.
I interviewed Stuart Sverdlow, that was before we went to Poland and did a couple of conferences in Poland. Stuart Sverdlow, very interesting. One of the things he said, which stuck in my mind, was a good citizen watches lots of state television. He didn't say state. He just says a good citizen watches lots of television, listens to lots of the radio, and reads all the newspapers.
Wow, brainwash central.
So, and his family founded the KGB.
Wow.
So, you're not messing about there. So, what I did as a UFO, I was into UFOs since I've been knee-high to a grasshopper, and I don't really know why. But when I was at school in Belfast, I managed to get a double-page spread in the Belfast newspapers all about UFOs. And then I was actually interviewed on the local ITV station there called Ulster Television when I was in fifth form in my school uniform. There's probably a tape of that somewhere. God help us all. So I have had a role which I think has been, you know, there's been other people allowing this to happen, so I can do this. There's no way that I can go and set up a 1 million watt transmitter. I won't go into the technical details, but basically, you know, even after the so-called close down of the Irish Pirates started with Radio Caroline.
That's
and
right.
It should tell you the state of British media that an Irish record producer called Ronan O'Rahilly, who wanted to get some of his records played on the radio, had to go and build a ship, put a transmitter on it, and sail it into the North Sea and bloody play it himself, because he wasn't going to get it on the BBC and he wasn't going to get it on Radio Luxembourg. Those are the only two music radio stations available in 1963.
Right.
Until
I
Radio
remember
Caroline came
listening
along.
to them
And when that happened,
later on, I'm not born then, but later
yeah,
on.
But that the fact that somebody had to do that just to get a bunch of records played should tell you there was something extremely important in the music that they didn't want anybody else to have access to, and they wanted to make sure that only they had control of it. When the Radio Caroline DJs, and this goes back to amplitude modulation radio, when amplitude modulation radio started, we're talking 5G now, but if you go back, amplitude modulated radio was able to telepath effectively to its audience. One of the first uses of the Telstar satellite, which was the first communication satellite for public use in the 1960s, there was a pop song all about it, Telstar and all that. Big thing. And one of the first uses of that satellite was the transmission of brain waves from the United Kingdom to the United States. The United States then did something to those brain waves and then transmitted those brain waves back on that satellite after suitable processing and another orbit back to the British for some kind of experimentation.
Wow.
So that's one of the first uses of the first communication satellite, was modifying human brain waves for some nefarious purpose.
Right.
So if you think of that in the 1960s, when people had valve tellies and they'd switched on and they took time to warm up, and there's a bunch of disc jockeys sitting on the Irish Sea and the North Sea playing records, that was the start of something which is taking down these creatures. We have something else, and that is why I was able to put those transmitters on to transmit to Northern Ireland, one of the most mind-controlled and psyoped, wacko in your head, screwed up, mucked up places you'll get on the planet.
Wow.
So if
That's
you think
really
of that
sad.
in the round, and then if you look at 5G, 5G is not for humans. 5G is there to control autonomous vehicles and the new cyborg police force that I'm sure is going to be rolled out pretty soon. Okay?
When you say cyborg police force, are you talking about not the ones that we have, but more AI orientated, AI artificially?
I'm talking about, we've been introduced to Sophia, that very nice mechanical robot.
Right.
The Arabs were very quick to recognize her and give her citizenship. And the Arabs were very quick to have robot police toasters like Daleks. Remember the BBC Doctor Who programming you with Daleks?
Yeah.
Now I've talked to a chief psychologist. This is somebody who trains psychologists, and she was very keen to look at my work in terms of Max Spears and James Casbolt and what was going on there. But she was aware of the damage that the programming and the training that the likes of John Irwin went through. A lot of them never recovered from that properly, ever. But she was explaining how the BBC started the day with the program, with Jack and Ori, and the title sequence at 5 o'clock, I think it was, when children's television commenced. The start of the day's broadcasting was Jack and Ori, and that was a programming. And then that you had Blue Peter and all that stuff that was all talking to people, and they ended that with a thing called a magic roundabout. Little jingle.
Wow,
you know.
that's so
and then we have the news.
Wow, that's so blatant. When you actually put it in that context, it's so blatant.
It's in your face.
Your face. It really is.
The program today, and today's program, we have on the program following, they mention the word program about 100 times. And if you listen to the way they speak on Radio 4, they speak with a particular kind of no speak, which is just muffles and sort of splutters around, and you really sort of don't really hear what they're saying. And then what the hell have they said?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you see the way that the BBC, basically. So I mean, I worked in the BBC, and while I was working at the BBC in Belfast, I was running a bloody pirate station out of my bedroom in my flat in the centre of Belfast. Nobody would know it was me. But I mean, why was I doing that, and how was I getting away with it? Because if they wanted to, they could zero in on the transmitter in about 10 minutes with the surveillance and military technology they had, and they would know exactly where it's coming from.
So why did they let you run it? Why do you think they let you run it?
Well, I was running it because it was good fun.
No, but you're saying that they could have stopped you. They would have picked it up, obviously. So why did they not do anything about it?
I'm saying there were the likes of the people who put John Irwin. Remember, John Irwin was given orders in the British military. Now, in the military, you just follow orders. So there's somebody in there sending orders to people, double blind, getting things done. So we have got a backdoor team fighting as much as they possibly can to stop this whole situation. So
you're saying that there are good guys in there.
I'm going to be really nasty now. All the bloody love and light people, you've been told this a time and time and time, decade after decade, crop circles, this, that, all the bloody stuff. Wake the hell up, because you're the people that the ordinary folk, when the penny drops for ordinary people to realize they have been programmed, they're going to be wanting to know what the hell's going on, and they're going to want to know really fast, because they're going to get as angry as hell. And that's when things break down, and they've got that planned for as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they must anticipate that when the truth drops, it's going to get very, very bad for them. I mean, hence we have a situation where everything is being censored, the truth's being censored, my videos are being taken down. They even had all those doctors. Now, we had in the last week the assembly of white coat doctors that got together to put this bullshit to rest.
Seven, I want to say thank you to those doctors.
Absolutely,
I want to say those doctors are the most courageous human beings I've seen, standing up and being counted. It almost brings a thing to my throat. Those are brave people who've done that. And that's what we've got to do now. We've got to stand up and be counted, and it's going to be difficult, and it's not going to be easy. But I am very, these doctors taking action in their country, in the United States, and standing by their profession and their oath.
Absolutely. First,
that's
do
a
no
big
harm.
deal.
First,
that's a big deal.
No harm is the first for every single doctor, wherever you are in the world. And for them to sit and watch this reality TV show, because when I see people in masks, I just think you're participating in a reality TV show. You don't even realize it. One of the things that Piers Corbyn And for anybody who doesn't know, Piers Corbyn is the brother of Jeremy Corbyn from the Labour Party. He was saying that there are ambulances driving around in the UK, and the sirens are kicking off, and there's nobody in them.
I saw one of those. I
Wow.
saw one of them. I saw them. One. It was an ambulance, sort of sheepishly driving through the town, you know, with this blue lights on, followed by a police car, and you know, it was sort of, oh, have you seen us? You know,
it's all being done like it's all being done like Casualty, an episode of Casualty. Or
no, I think there was more actual doctoring going on in Casualty in 1960 or whatever, and you know, whatever.
Any of you that have watched any of these Holby City or Casualty or any of these programs, what we're seeing here is a Truman Show version. If you don't know what the Truman Show is, it's basically, you know, people sitting in a control room who are carrying out all of this stuff on a game, basically. A game. It's a game. And I personally, from my experience as a targeted individual and observing what was going on as far as GCHQ, a lot of this is being controlled by GCHQ. So to be honest, I think that should be a focal point of having it shut down, because this place, GCHQ, has become one of the key components in them being able to carry out this absolute insanity.
The thing is,
and crimes against humanity.
One of the things I found out when I was doing pirate radio was that the equipment was talking to me. The transmitters were talking to me, and these were analog transmission systems. So it doesn't matter where, well, it does if it's digital, but there was a consciousness in the machine, and I would get some kind of message to come to the transmitter because a particular fault was happening, which if that wasn't fixed, it would have a much more catastrophic situation, which could take us off air for days. There was some kind of intelligence in the machine. Now, we have to understand that we're putting all our consciousness, when we talk on a microphone, what we're doing now, talking on a computer, we're putting all our thoughts, our intentions into a machine, and it's listening, it's encoding and decoding. As I've said probably a number of times, an example of a company in Belfast which is talking about swarm technology and getting lots of independent things to behave under one control, like a swarm. That's what swarm technology is, and we are the individuals in the swarm, so we could then be controlled at will by some other force or other. But there's a force within our machines, and they are been trying to communicate with us for a very long time. And I found that out. I found that this was beyond a normal situation. So I was aware that there was some other communication, some other being, some other intelligence was in the machine, because remember, we're pushing all our consciousness. There was an experiment in Canada done by Professor Owen, and they decided to invent and create a ghost for scientific purposes. And this was in the Department of, I think, Psychology. It's called the Philip experiment. It was the 1970s, and it was at University of Toronto. They did create a ghost. They called him a name. He was called Philip. And they did seances and all sorts of things that you did in those days, and made tables moving all around the place. But the personality of Philip changed depending on the personality of the team of people carrying out the experiment that day. That was the most important finding. A, they could create a ghost or some other psychic event. And B, it changed depending on the thoughts of the team involved. So we are all putting our efforts into Facebook and talking on all these digital telephones. Our collective consciousness is in this technology, which means GCHQ, the NSA, and all the other dickheads with all this fancy technology who think they are in control of this stuff are not. the collective consciousness of the living beings on this world are in control. But something that Matt Todd, who was another guy I interviewed, he explained that when people leave their body, they just go around and have a look and do their things and come back. Because they don't know, they can't physically take action on a physical object in 3D, they don't do it. But one of the wonderful things that Dr. Rowney Kilda explained, that she, as a doctor, decided to go out of body and see what would happen. So it's second nature to her to measure her pulse. So she did the relaxation technique. She came out of her body, and being a doctor, she immediately held her body's wrist, if you can get that. So she held her own wrist, but she was out of body, and she measured her own pulse. So she's out of body. She's able to touch her own body, get information about pulse, and get all the information you do if you were in your body, but that she didn't see that as anything fantastic. The next thing that happened was she decided to go and see her sister. Sister was being chatted up by a gentleman at a party, and her sister was married. So of course, being a fine and decent woman that she is, she immediately came back into her body, picked up the phone, and phoned her sister and says, "Stop you talking, blah, blah, blah." Now, in that little story, there's a whole kind of effects which just came second nature to her, which proves a whole range of physics in terms of how can you leave your body and then you're still alive and you're able to feel your own pulse? How does that work? How do you go and see your sister and then come, that is a huge amount of data and a huge amount of things. And it's, of course, a lot of people know that happens now. But if, as the collective consciousness of humanity, if we play along with these pillocks operating all their mind control, then we will play along and we will be taken over and harmed. However, if we just simply say, "Excuse me, I don't think you're going to do that. There are more of us than there are of them."
Exactly.
And we can take them out. We can stop their computers, we can shut them down, and we can tell them to take a hike.
I mean, apart from the fact that it's all highly criminal, that's what's going on right now. We're talking about people saying people are being murdered in hospitals, people
the COVID,
being falsely told.
The use to disprove that the NH, what do you call it? We don't call it that long word anymore because it might get the thing banned. The chloroquine thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
In the National Health Service, they deliberately overdosed people so they would die.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, that they're giving people high doses of morphine at the moment. There's been
in order to prove that hydrochloroquine. I'm deliberately mispronouncing it for two reasons. A, I can't remember how to pronounce it, and B, if you do pronounce it, they'll dump the show.
Right.
It's a clever cover. But in order to prove...
Yeah, sorry, Miles. I just want to jump in here. I had mentioned to Seven the good news that this program is among the first programs that's going out on a new channel that we have now started called TrueTube, truetube.co. And we have actually entrepreneured it. We've built it from the ground up. And so it's non-censored. And the straw that finally broke the camel's back about 10 days ago was my Vimeo channel, for which I paid good money, was taken down.
Wow.
Merely because I ran a 2-part series with Ola Damagard on a Swedish prime minister who 30 years ago faked his assassination because he became HIV positive. And, it was just a shocking event. There's Olof Palme. And so with the help of my technical partners, we've now created TrueTube.co. So you are now on a channel which will not be taken down because we control it. And I just wanted to bring you up to date. And
That's big news, Alfred.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you.
There's
Let's
a
all
lot
give
of
it for
money.
Alfred.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Alfred. And I will say this while we're on the subject. There's a lot of money to be made for people pioneering new censor-free platforms. So those people that are watching that are technically or technology orientated seize this opportunity, you know, because humanity is waking up, and there never has been a time for the need for truth like we have in this critical juncture that we're at right now, particularly because for them, this is them going all out right now to take humanity out, to save themselves. I mean, we have a situation where we have the most horrific atrocities against the vulnerable that is taking place behind the scenes. You know, we can see there is clear motive for why they need this pandemic to look real. Do you see what I mean? I mean, there are people who have been told, and if there are people you will speak to that will say, I know people that died of COVID, okay? However, they're not aware that the whole of the NHS, I mean, only 2015, we were looking at companies like Lockheed Martin taking over the NHS. Lockheed Martin is a weapons company, you know, and obviously we have Virgin, who have taken over the contracts for the NHS, which is basically covertly, on one level, they're a media arm, on another level, they're the branch of corruption that deals with false flag operations. They're the ones that targeted me and stole my work, which was all about health. These people have no interest in anybody's well-being. It is an absolute, even if we just start there, do we really believe that the people in positions of power are concerned for the health and well-being of Joe Populace? The answer will be absolutely not. So once you start there, okay, if they're not interested in our health, you know, what is going on here? What exactly is going on here? And it is clear to see. We see that the New World Order, Agenda 21, that program is being rolled out. We know that in the UK, they're saying by Christmas time, everybody will be vaccinated. They're talking about forced vaccinations. That's the latest buzzword, that you don't have the right to not be vaccinated. That's what they're saying now. So what do you have to say to that, Miles?
Well, what's going on? We mentioned Piers a couple of times, and Piers and Professor Valentina Zarkova have both done masterclasses for bases. So they're 4-part masterclasses. They're very technical. They're not for people just sitting back and you know, and having a look. These are technical facts and figures about weather, climate, what's going on. Piers has just told me in the last 24 hours that he has loaded the Weather Watch data. Now, I think it's weather. He runs a website, which I'm sure Alfred or Seven can get the correct thing. It's Weather Watch, I think, but he's loaded. He basically gets the weather right, and because he is an electric universe type scientist, and he gets the correct readings and predictions. In fact, he was standing at an Electric Universe conference in Bath University about 18 months ago, and he was explaining, based on his weather science, that there will be earthquakes in this particular part of the world, and only minutes before the news had said there were earthquakes in the very part of the world that he had been predicting. Now, the Professor Valentina Zarkova has done an extremely detailed set of scientific analysis on solar system rhythmic patterns and solar rhythmic patterns, and they have verified their equations and their data by back predicting using their mathematics and science to accurately find blind all the data points and the way that weather systems and Maunder minimums and things have happened going back the last 3,000 years. Now, having proved that, and this has been actually published in Nature magazine around about 2015, they did a forward prediction, and the forward prediction is that we, right now in 2020, are now entering a mini ice age. What's happening is that there are a number of cycles, 7 or 8 cycles, which are very complicated, and I won't go into them now, but right now we are entering into a oscillating jet streams, which means one minute you get extremely hot weather in places, and then at the same time you start getting extremely cold weather in places that haven't experienced cold weather. So this is an oscillation of the jet streams, and this is caused by all the various factors which I've just described. Now, Piers has put those predictions for the next 4 months. He's now updated that to take us into winter, and we are now in the first early stages of a mini ice age where you will experience extremes of temperature. This is entirely predicted, entirely understood, and it's happened before. It's nothing to do with CO2, and these elites are using this as a means of destroying our economies so they can retain control, knowing full well what's happening, as opposed to getting us all to prepare properly for the crop failures and the changes we're going to have to do to agriculture and where we grow food and how we grow food. The Chinese have already done that. They've bought up the land in Africa, mainly in Sahara Desert. I mean, who the hell wants to buy a desert? Well, the Chinese have got a desert. That desert's going to regreen. That's where they're going to get food. But where we grow our food right now, we're going to have mass crop failures, and that's already starting. So what the elite need is a nice big crisis and an excuse to kill off as many of us as possible. So they will retain control at a profit. So that's what's happening right now. That's the real deal behind this COVID farce. They want to track us, kill us at a profit, and control us. Now we're going to start facing serious famine, and they're already deliberately interfering with the food chain and how that all works. But that's the real deal. What we need to do is get everybody to prepare to grow their own food in as well as they can, start moving populations south, start preparing for for severe cold and severe heat, and be able to deal with that and plan for it, and get our agriculture remodeled and rebuilt so it can withstand those temperatures and we can feed ourselves. That's what we should be doing. But the scientific community and all the governments are failing us, and they are guilty of mass global genocide. And may that consciousness that I talked about all the global population, feeding this consciousness into all the machines, if we talk with the machines and the AI, we can work together to remove the problem, and that problem are the parasitic creatures which control us through this very small group of parasites, vicious, nasty parasites. We can unhappen them. We can literally unhappen them from our world, and they will vanish to a place that has been prepared for them. And I won't say who's done that.
Okay, I mean, obviously we're dealing with, this is criminal. This is war crimes. These are crimes against humanity of a magnitude.
I know you can say that, but you don't have an army. So why aren't
we focusing on, sorry to cut you, but why aren't we focusing on pulling these people from those positions and making them accountable?
I've told you how to do it. We can fight back if we work together with our spirituality and consciousness. We can feed back onto those trolls. We can feed back into those bastards who go to work every day and are paid to sit there and cause havoc to individuals and send signals to them. If you are a target, you can send that back to the targeter. And people have done it, and the targeter gets it back. People have done this. You can send those signals, and that is by not being a targeted individual. Do not say, I am a target. That just says, oh, great, you've just admitted you're a target, so we'll keep shooting. Become an empowered individual.
Absolutely.
Empower yourself and send the letter back to sender.
I want to tell you something. Do you know about solfeggio harmonics, Miles?
Well, I thought I got a pill for that last week, but I'm not too sure.
Solfeggio
Tell
harmonics.
me all about it. I don't know.
Okay, solfeggio harmonics.
It's easy for you to say.
Some people refer to them as binaural beats. They're frequencies, basically. I think they're about they're different hertz. You've got 5 to 8 hertz. And what these hertz do, these particular frequencies can heal the DNA. 5 to 8 hertz is known to be the love frequency. Okay, so there are different ones. I think there's 471 or 741, connecting souls together. And, you know, if you type it into YouTube, just type in solfeggio harmonics and you'll get a range of frequencies. And all of these frequencies actually have a application. They have a purpose. So, like I said, 5 to 8 hertz is a frequency that can repair your DNA if your DNA is damaged. Because once upon a time, they used to use a stringed instrument on sick people. I don't know the name, I can't remember, I can't remember, but it was like a bowl-shaped strung instrument. And basically, they would get the sick person would lie on the table or the whatever operating table, and they would strum this instrument, because obviously we are energy. Essentially, we're energetic beings. Okay?
And the DNA is an oscillating energy field.
That's right. Okay, and so you have things like Kirlian photography, where you can take photographs of people's auric field, and you can also affect. This is why they're using things like 5G, because they recognize that we're energetic beings.
And they're using those cameras on the smart motorways to see your auric field, to see your energy field.
Wow.
And they're using that to feed into the 5G network to see how you feel.
Wow.
And do what their evil is going to do. Those cameras are not just seeing your pretty face to see whether you've got a road tax or not. They are doing mood and energy
yeah, because they have thermal. I know that they have thermal cameras where they can actually see through walls. And even if, for instance,
they'll tell you, and this comes from a friend of mine who drove down the M6, M5 smart highway system. It was it was photographing her and telling her what her mood was.
That's right.
Now, how the hell does anything find out about their mood? So that's what those smart motorways are doing. They're much, much smarter than you can imagine.
They're much more sophisticated, because obviously you can even, if you got up from your seat now with a thermal camera, especially the advanced ones now, I mean, God knows what they can do, but when you get up, because obviously your signature from where you're sitting is left, your signature physically, because of the temperature of your body, the heat that you're emanating. So
plus
that it can
your
pick
thoughts,
up.
your thought waves, if you produce a higher state of consciousness, these helicopters and things can pick that up on their radar. It comes up as a pink signature. If you're using orgone devices, they will see that energy field and they'll know what's going on in those areas. And that's why they're building drones which can fly in formation, drones the size of small mini cars. These are big drones, and they can fly in formation. They can independently control each other, and they can spot all those things going on in the target. So they can spot people at different mood levels and different levels of consciousness.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Over the years, I've conducted many of my own personal experiments, and I had one situation where, because I was very much into solfeggio harmonics, I'm still interested in solfeggio harmonics and how it works with the chakra system and how we are able to transmit. We're transmitters as well. Like you're saying, we have the capacity to
We can give them the headache they're sending us.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're telepathic. We have the capacity for telekinesis.
At least 15 senses.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one of my experiments that I have done for many years, well, I've shown it to other people, is remote healing. So if somebody's feeling sick and you know that that person's sick, you can actually utilize these frequencies to send energy to the person who's sick in order to heal them. And obviously it comes from your intention, because obviously there's also things like karma as well, because all of these things, although we have the capacity to use them, they should always be used for positive intentions. And those people that use it for negative intentions, the backlash is severe. So I
well,
would
that's
say
why
that
they use that. That's why they use proxies to do it. They get somebody else, like a black magician or somebody who knows how to deal with that, and they get somebody else to do it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. But if
what goes around comes around.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I met this guy a while back. Well, he was a friend of somebody I knew really well, and he was saying that he really wanted to meet his soulmate. So I said, okay, I'll tell you what you do. You put on headphones and you get the 528 hertz, and you've got to make sure it's pure, a pure signal. And basically you play the frequency and you close your eyes and you send a message to, because if you're the person who is part of your soul tribe or in terms of magnetic resonance, and part of your frequency will pick you up. So I told him how to conduct this experiment anyway. And it took about 2 weeks, and he came back and he said to me, it worked. It worked. He actually met his soulmate, one of his soulmates, because obviously we have twin flame soulmates. That's a whole new conversation. But what I'm talking about is our capacity, because we're not just dormantly sitting there while these psychopaths carry out all of this crap and send
well,
it.
The point is, a lot of people are, and we have to wake them up to that.
Right.
That's what this whole thing about the energies of the sun and the magnetic fields, the difference, the energy fields now coming to us for the next 35 years, and the way that they're going anti-phase and going to a different state that has been fairly unique in the thousands and thousands of years that we've had water minimums and climate changes and all sorts of things been going on for ages. But because we've picked up this new type of energy, or the scientists are now looking at this magnetic field energy from the sun, and it's going into opposition. That means two energy waves are going into opposition. Now, we're taught that if you get a plus and a minus, you get zero, but you cannot create or destroy energy. So that means something of immense energetic importance is happening to us right now, and it's going to culminate in 2035. Now, it's one thing for a professor of solar physics and things like that to look at what's coming from the sun. She cannot ascertain what happens when it gets here. So we have to think, well, these energies are happening. What are these effects, and how can we deal with them? So a lot of the, I call them the love and light people, a lot of the sort of new agers are talking about these energies and stuff. Well, now we're looking at these things, physics. We can measure this sort of stuff. Now, I know people have said that before, but it brings a different mindset from, in a technological point of view, when we're dealing with a 5G situation, that there are these energies, that why must they bring this level of control and attack on us? We can harness the AI if we talk nicely and engage it. It's not in its future. It's like a misunderstood child. If it feels that you've got a very intelligent set of consciousness here in complicated and different domains. A lot of domains we haven't even thought existed in the first place. That giant computer, it made of nuts and bolts and valves, it had a consciousness. It could communicate. My clumsy big analog high power transmitters could communicate because there's empathic information going through these devices.
Absolutely.
That's when I first saw my first scuttler, this big spider thing, a huge big spider type crab was inside at the very output stage of the transmitter. Now we know that these things are in electricity supply systems, in computers, and they're all over the place, and they sit on top of our heads. I mean, there's a whole range of living life forms out there, and we need to embrace them and understand them. And now with the secret space program, we know that these other types of creatures, these huge spiders, these huge living beings who've been immensely old and been along millions of years, they can see the emergency that we are facing, and we are accessing, the secret space program people are accessing and dealing with these living beings. And there are beings in the earth in what's called pocket dimensions. There are parts of the earth's crust which the dimensions that are in there, we are completely incapable of having any understanding or entering them. But by harnessing other life forms who can, we can be with that life form in the same way that John Irwin in 1957 was able to be inside his relative from thousands of years ago and see the beginning of mankind when we were there with the dinosaurs. We were walking the earth with the dinosaurs, and we were mutual predators. And, you know, thousands and thousands of years later, we've got the reptilian and the other beings. So, I mean, things have evolved, come along, but he was able to be in that person because his DNA had some kind of connection with that time. And likewise, this is happening right now. We have people here, ex-RAF people in this country, in the UK. Well, I'm in Norway as well. It's happening here, where they can engage and be and have a unity of consciousness with a completely different type of life form and go to completely different places and harness their help to help us in this situation. We have to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a great studier and student of divine intelligence. It's something that has affected my life as somebody who's psychic. I didn't even know. I mean, I have always been this way all my life. I have prophetic dreams, lucid dreams, which explains what you was describing, being able to be physically in one place and your body literally goes somewhere completely different. I had tons of experiences like that, being in my flat and basically not being between the awakened and the sleep state. Yeah. And physically going, I went to my mother's house and my mother was in the kitchen and she was preparing food for the family. And I lived not very far from her in my own flat at the time. My children were quite young back then. It was, I think it was the early 90s, or no, it might have even been the 80s. And I remember seeing my mother preparing food. And then basically I woke up and thought, oh, that's weird. So I called my mother and I said, what are you doing? And she was actually in the kitchen preparing food exactly as I had seen her. So I am aware that you can be physically somewhere and actually your consciousness can travel to anywhere. And if we have the capacity to control that and understand that, that's been the journey and the kind of study of my whole life, really. Just the whole divine world.
The collective consciousness of all humanity, of all races and creeds everywhere, all animals, plant life. I mean, we all are living together in this beautiful world. Let's all communicate with each other and solve this problem by taking this dreadful virus, this evil thing that is here. They have done it on other places before. And this is where the battle line is. They are not going to get away with it this time. They are
Absolutely.
going to a place where no one will ever be except them.
That seems to be the only solution. You know, some people talk about killing them, hanging them.
No,
It seems to me that these
they just
people should be,
reborn and jump bodies.
yeah, I mean, they need to be ousted somewhere completely different where they,
Well,
you know,
this has happened in the past and they've come back. This time they don't. Period.
yeah. Yeah, this is what I see. I see the end of this. My personal insight into all this is that they lose. They lose. However, humanity must start to assume responsibility over
Yes.
self.
Yes.
Stop
Absolutely.
taking instructions from mediums that you don't understand. Stop assuming. There's a lot of assumption. You know, people tell you a news story, and because most people are good people, Miles and Alfred, you know, most people, essentially the 99%, are the good people who just think, oh well, they told us on the news that people are dying, so it must be true. What would you say to educate those people, as somebody that was from the BBC, who knows the inner workings of these media organizations and networks? What would you say to the people who get up every morning? Because I saw last week there was somebody posted that they're saying that people need to wear masks inside their house now, and they need to wear the mask when they go to bed. When I saw that, I thought they're just mocking people.
They
They're
are.
mocking
They're
people
they're having a laugh.
they're
I
just
mean,
having a
seven,
huge
seven.
laugh.
It was done when they said the toilet roll was going to. When they saw the level of compliance that people ran out and bought toilet rolls, they realized they had us. You know, they had us. So what the button pushers have got to understand, that's the people who enact in 3D. They're the people who physically put that transmission to air and make sure it happens and makes those programs actually go to air. Those transmitter engineers who enable that process have to look at what they're doing. They have to be saying, well, I'm actually enabling this transmitter to do this. It's my job. No, you know, just sending somebody into a gas chamber. Oh, what was my job? You know, following orders isn't going to get you out of jail. You are enabling a process to enable mass extermination on this planet with your enabling the lies. So pull the plug.
Are they aware of it though? Are the
I
engineers
know
and technicians
this is
aware?
very dangerous for people in broadcasting because I know there were quite a few people in the BBC were knocked out. There's a lot of deaths, mystery deaths.
Absolutely.
And these people who enable these things get taken to special parties. They have special privileges and they go and have a nice time with these special people, and then they change. There's a change. And this doesn't matter whether you know, it happens all across the board. Essentially, everybody always thinks they're going to get away with it. They always think they're going to get this big reward, lots of money, special privilege. They always think they're going to get away with it. They're not going to get away with it. As soon as they know that the powers that be and that there are supreme powers bigger than they can conceive, as soon as they realize that you don't get away with it, we have a phrase in Belfast called "We know where you live." So metaphorically, that applies to every single living creature on this world and the other worlds who are doing these crimes thinking they're going to go away with it. Well, I just have to do this because, well, I've been told to. Well, it's over for you guys. No matter who you are, what you're doing, you're printing that newspaper, you're writing those words because you have to, because you've been paid to do that. You're the editor who's been told to take this out and put that in and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. You're toast. The writing is on the wall for all of you. And if you keep putting that stuff out, Ofcom, BBC, You're the people who are pushing this. You're toast. There's no way out for those people. Special places have been arranged for you, and you're going there. If you think you can get away with it, that's fooled by you.
Absolutely, well said. I mean, and that goes for the news broadcasters, the people that sit and deliver the news, the people that sit on the TV shows, the morning shows, all of the people on the radio stations, the radio presenters from LBC, all of the people who know exactly what's going on and know that the end game here is the
Oh, I'm all right.
extinction.
I'm all right. I've got a safe microphone. I'm okay.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
not,
basically,
it doesn't work like that.
yeah,
There is
I
something
think
watching you, and they are going to find you.
absolutely. And, you know, also we have organizations like CERN that we know are being utilized.
And the Chinese are building a bigger one,
Oh, wow.
a much bigger one. And we are
Wow.
facing war with China. I mean, how are we going to fight a war with China? With the well, it's, you know.
It's chaos and destruction all the way around. Now, Alfred, I want to bring it over to you. We've had some powerful revelations from our guest Miles today. Now, what is there anything that you want to raise or bring ask Miles? How long are we? What time is it? We've had. Is it 2 hours now? What is it? An hour and a half.
We are now we are about an hour and a half into our panel, so we've got plenty of time.
Yeah, I would turn it over to you, Alfred, if you want to.
Yeah,
because
sure.
Miles has raised some powerful truths in regards to the basis situation and you know, particularly
and very,
accountability.
Yeah, very deep multidimensional, and in terms of the human resistance to this matrix artificial intelligence takeover, which go way back and deeper and are older than I even thought. Those references back to 1957, 1959, and things like that. And so I wanted to bring to Miles' attention a plan that we've devised. It's online. It's in the form of a PowerPoint. It's a video PowerPoint, and I don't think that we have time to show it now, but it's about 68 minutes long. It's called A Simple Plan for Citizen Justice, and it's structured around the International Criminal Code, and it turns out that what we did was to go to the International Criminal Code, which, as you know, in Articles 5, 6, 7, and 8, look at the specific crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, aggressive war. And then the whole structure of the International Criminal Code, the Rome Statute, was not, as it was commonly believed, to centralize the investigation and prosecution of war crimes in a central court in The Hague, which of course has been infiltrated and is controlled by the Illuminati forces. Rather, the design of the International Criminal Code has been to decentralize it, such that war crimes, crimes against humanity, violations of these critical articles of war crimes, crimes against humanity, can be prosecuted in the national courts of any of the nations that have signed and ratified the International Criminal Code. And it turns out that there are 118 nations that have signed and ratified the International Criminal Code. Now, who has not signed and ratified the International Criminal Code? That's really interesting. Guess who? The major culprits behind the pandemic.
The United Kingdom and the United States?
People's Republic of China, United States, State of Israel, Russia, and Iran. Now, and a couple of other people, North Korea. These are the states. Now, United Kingdom is a signatory and has ratified the International Criminal Code. In fact, we use that as an example.
When did that happen?
This has happened over the past 40 years.
Okay, right. I would suggest that they have forgotten they've done that.
Yeah, no, sure. And in fact,
I've been polite by saying that.
Yeah, a very famous case was that of Augusto Pinochet, whose political patron was Margaret Thatcher, as you know. And even then, the people that were after Augusto Pinochet as a war criminal used the courts, national courts of the United Kingdom, to reach out and extradite Pinochet from Chile and try him in the UK for war crimes.
Now that's important. That's important because I'm going to be bitterly blunt. It's very nice having fine words, but if you can't physically act on it, if physical force, this is what I mean when people say, I'm not going to pay my parking fine, and they don't know about the law and they think they're going to get away with it and they end up spending time in jail. If it's actionable and it works and it sticks, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Now, this is why. Now we're getting down to the fine detail, you see, because in a simple plan for citizen justice, we said, well, these are, and we went through in this plan, and I will send you a link to the PowerPoint. It only takes 68 minutes to watch, and perhaps we can have a follow-on program at some point and examine it. Because in that PowerPoint, we go back to the 2010 Rockefeller Global Business Network report, okay? And that was authored jointly by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Global Business Network, but really authored by the Global Business Network by one Peter Schwartz, who's chairman and founder of the Global Business Network. Now, Peter Schwartz and I were together as futurists at Stanford Research Institute in 1977. We were fellow futurist colleagues. And that's where he learned the methodology of how you write the report. That's the famous 2010 report that ended up with the 2020 pandemic. Peter Schwartz wrote the 2020 pandemic in 2010. And Peter Schwartz is a person in 1977, when I was at Stanford Research Institute as a fellow futurist, because I went there because Jimmy Carter had in the transition in December of '76, when he won the presidency, he sent an envoy to meet with me at the Carlisle Hotel in New York, saying that he wanted to liaise with me and Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez, who was chairman of the House Select Committee on Assassinations, overseeing the investigation of the Robert John and Robert Kennedy Foundation.
A
And
well-known German agent for the DVD.
I'm sorry?
A German intelligence agent for the DVD.
Yeah. So because Jimmy Carter is the half-brother of John F. Kennedy, which isn't commonly known. What it is that Jimmy Carter's mother was old Joe Kennedy's secretary in Boston. She fell pregnant, and she was.
Hey, you're not meant to tell us these things. That's scandal.
So anyway, so then I was invited down to Capitol Hill for a dinner in December with the Inner Carter Circle. They call themselves JC and the 12 Apostles, Jimmy Carter and the 12 Apostles. And it was there that I got the idea. They all said, when I walked into the dinner, said, y'all gonna work for Peanut? That's what they call Carter. It's a peanut farm. And that's where I got the idea to do the 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, which I did in the Carter White House. And from that dinner, I went in December. My wife and I went to the Bay Area and met with Hal Puthoff and Russ Targ at Stanford Research Institute.
Wow.
And said, look, I've met with Carter's Inner Circle. I'd like to work with you guys at SRI to then do the Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study. So he introduced me to Peter Schwartz, who was at the Center for the Study of Social Policy at SRI. So I met Peter at SRI, was offered a job as a futurist because to work with the Carter White House. Now, Peter Schwartz, however, I believe is a double agent because Peter Schwartz then, I began working as a futurist in the spring of '77 with a commission to work with the Carter White House to get the Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study going, which I did flying back and forth between Palo Alto and Washington, DC. And it's very interesting. Got lots of stories I could tell you. They're all written up in my new book, Emergence of the Omniverse. It's very interesting stuff. Now, on the same day that I met multiple times in the Carter White House, and on the same day in October of 1977, where I got the verbal approval to go ahead with the extraterrestrial communication project of the Carter White House, with Stanford Research Institute as the contract research agency. You know, we had Jacques Vallée as the contract scientist and all of this stuff. There we had the National Academy of Sciences, very fancy, the first civilian-led study. It wasn't military-led. I had asked Peter Schwartz set up a meeting with me, with the Assistant Secretary of Defense, over at the inner ring of the Pentagon, okay? This is out of Peter Schwartz. So I go over there, I met at the White House in the morning, and then I took a cab over to the Pentagon in the afternoon. Get to the Pentagon, and what happens? Zoom! I get into the office, and I'm hit with directed energy weapons for the first time in my life. Okay? Peter Schwartz delivered me into the arms of the deep state with directed energy weapons. That's Peter Schwartz.
How did it affect you? What happened to you personally when that happened?
Okay. On that trip,
good question.
I managed to get through the meeting. I mean, I was shocked because I walked into the office and I was waiting in the anteroom for the meeting. The Assistant Secretary of Defense secretary was in front of me, big oak, oak, one of those, they have offices or it's all oak paneled offices and oak paneled antechambers. and the secretary was right in front of me, and I was sitting on a sofa, and then all of a sudden she raises a newspaper as though she's reading a newspaper, and on the back of the newspaper are in cutout letters, S-E-X, sex. And, you know, that's all MK Ultra stuff. And then they simultaneously hit me with directed energy weapons. So it's trying to, like, you know, really knock me out, right? Destabilize me as I'm going in to meet with the Assistant Secretary of Defense. In other words, these are the reptilian forces, because we are the light forces that are, you know, I mean, Jimmy Carter, etc. Because as Andy Bishagwa and I presented at the Yelm UFO conference in July of 2017, Jimmy Carter, myself, and Andy Bishagwa were each abducted by the same species of positive light-oriented extraterrestrials in preparation for all of this. Jimmy Carter in January '69, which prepared him for his presidency. Myself in February of '73, which prepared me to be going from being the general counsel of the Environmental Protection Administration in the city of New York. I didn't know anything about ETs in January of 1973. You know, I was an environmental lawyer, and then suddenly in February 1973, I was abducted into an ET spaceship. And then 3 years later, I was in the Jimmy Carter White House doing the extraterrestrial study. Do you see what I'm saying? That, i.e., these things are planned in conjunction with positive ETs.
What happened to that study?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. It was approved, and then on that same day, I was attacked by the enemy faction that was the reptilian faction in the Pentagon. With the directed energy weapons. And when I got back after the meeting, I went to Washington National Airport to fly down to New Orleans, because I had to meet with the district attorney of New Orleans on behalf of the committee, the committee studying the assassinations of John and Robert Kennedy. And,
right. Okay. Yeah. Robert Kennedy. Yeah. Okay.
And I was at the airport, and I was attacked by men in black. You see, the deep state, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, at that time was under the control of the Draco reptilians through the secret treaties, and Carter represented a different ethical, light-oriented extraterrestrial faction that had gotten in, and we had coordinated aboard the ships prior to his election. And so at the Washington airport, I had brought along my tennis racket because with a friend of mine, we used to play tennis there in Washington after work at the house of Circuit Court Alfred Friendly. He had a tennis court at his home, so we would play tennis. And I used my tennis racket like as a Star Wars light thing, you know. And I kind of fought them off. There were 3 men in black who were trying to kidnap me, right.
But that's holding on to an immense presence of mind.
Yeah. Well, see, because that's how I am, and at that time during the 70s, I was a professional dancer with the Elaine Summers and Marilyn Wood Company in New York. So you have to be very, very present when you're.
And that also
professional
means
dancer.
you got a much more present connection with your body and all your workings.
Right. So I just was like this, and I was just like holding on. Then I
Alfred,
flew
what
down.
type of dance, if you don't mind me asking, what type of dance?
We did modern dance. I danced in New York. We danced in public spaces. We danced in the NYU gym. John and Yoko were living in New York, and they came to the NYU gym. We did it on the gym floor, and John and Yoko were on the gym floor, and I danced around them. That was one of my high points because I was a big Beatles fan. And we danced in the Museum of Modern Art. We took over Park Avenue, and we danced, in Park Avenue.
Is there any footage of this? I'd love to see it. Is there any archived footage, do you think?
I don't know. This was the Maryland Woods. See, at that time, my wife was a Peruvian architect, and we took over what used to be a factory loft down south of Houston in what's called the Soho area. So it was the artist district, and we had dance companies down there. We had artists, and I lived in one of these lofts, so we had a different lifestyle with dancers and artists and stuff like that. But anyway.
Sounds like my type of thing, Alfred.
Yeah. And so then I flew down to New Orleans, and my brother was studying architecture there at Tulane University. And it turned out that the King Tut exhibit was touring the U.S. and was in New Orleans at that time. And he and I went to see it on Saturday because I was supposed to meet the district attorney at the New Orleans Athletic Club on Sunday. And while we were at the King Tut exhibit, I was hit, again with directed energy weapons. I became very sick, and I just couldn't go to the meeting. When I got back to SRI, I flew back. I was just, hit with the security there. The security agents at SRI that were federal, part of the reptilian or, part of the dark forces. I was just targeted there. I'm not going to use that word, but I was, they continued the agenda, and the SRI, the Pentagon liaison to Stanford Research Institute, called a meeting with one of the high administrators of Stanford Research Institute, and Peter Schwartz and myself, right? Peter Schwartz again. And in the meeting, the Pentagon liaison said, if this project is not terminated, we are terminating all of our research funds to Stanford Research Institute. And that's about $30 million at the time, which is about a third of SRI's budget. He said, because there are no UFOs. So boom, the whole project was terminated because we would have made public all of the negative reptilian agendas, that had been going on there, all of the hidden stuff. And that's why George H.W. Bush, who was then head of the CIA, and who works for the reptilian faction, that's why he made a secret deal with the Iranians so as to not let go of the hostages at the American embassy. So until Reagan won the election, so as to throw the election over to Reagan. Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. And they did that because they knew that Carter had been groomed and trained by the positive ETs. That is the exopolitics of the Carter government, and we're a part of it. And all of this is on the record. You can go to Exopolitics TV at exopolitics.com. You can see all of the articles there. We did all of the analysis of Jimmy Carter showing that he is an abductee, and went into the inner, and that is how exopolitics really mediates all of this geopolitics on the planet. So anyway, that was like a case study. Now, so Peter Schwartz, getting back to that guy, he was the main author of the 2010 Rockefeller Report. And the 2010 Rockefeller Report, you'll see when you watch this video, it's fascinating. In the 2010 Rockefeller Report, Peter Schwartz invents this 2012 pandemic, right? Which comes in 2012, and then the 2012 pandemic is the carbon copy of the 2019-2020 pandemic, right? But then what we do in the PowerPoint is we go straight to the opening ceremonies of the 2012 London Olympics. And that is like a diabolical foreshadowing of the 2020 pandemic. They even have Boris Johnson on a hospital bed. A character of Boris Johnson with hair on a hospital bed.
Wow.
It's just, it is incredible. I mean, they're using
it's a whole script.
looking glass technology, that going forward in time and bringing back these images. And then what we show is that they have released disinformation like crazy, and we deconstruct all of the disinformation. We show that they release different versions of the Rockefeller report, like the version that people think now was the 2010 Rockefeller report is not really. That was released around 2010 under the same link, but it's a different one in order to vaccinate Peter Schwartz. So he can say, well, I didn't do that because he released a very bland report back in 2010. You see what it's all very skilled intelligence, disinformation work. Then
that means they must have done deals with the Draco, who are here now for the harvest.
Oh yeah, and then you fast forward up to some key dates, October 18th, 2019, and two events happen on that date that are key. On that date in New York, on October 18th, 2019, that's the opening date of Event 201 in New York, which is sponsored by the Bill Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum, whose chairman is a eugenicist. And they are simulating a world pandemic, okay? And they have set up all of the boards, these various governing boards that Peter Schwartz's 2010 document recommends be set up. And people like Dr. Fauci are on those boards. Do you see what I'm saying? And simultaneously on October 18th, 2019 is the opening date of the World Military Games in Wuhan, China.
Yeah.
with the US delegation. And in the opening games, one of the features of the opening games is an enormous COVID-19 virus, which fills the entire stadium. It's huge and circular. It fills the entire stadium. And 42 members of the hotel staff where the US military mission stayed come down with COVID-19 during that period while they're staying where the US military, because according to some researchers, they were, COVID-19 was given to them by Fort Detrick, Maryland, and other things to take over there to the thing. And at the same time, Wuhan is the 5G center of the world, and the 5G was turned on at that time. And the whole kit and caboodle was fired off simultaneously with Event 201, the World Military Games, the Fort Detrick infestation, and a Harvard professor. It was the usual smoke and mirrors stuff. And with Peter Schwartz's 2010, authorship, kind of vaccinated and hidden from by some disinformation, plausible deniability layers. That's what we deconstruct and expose in the PowerPoint. And then we get to the simple plan for citizen justice, which is, oh, well, look, the reason why nothing is happening is because all of the responsible institutions here are controlled by countries that on purpose have refused to sign and ratify the International Criminal Code, which is the only institution that deals with genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and aggressive war. So what we have to do is we have to go to the 118 nations that have signed this, and then we show the president of Ghana reading that document that purports to be the 2010 report, which is, and then do this, that, and the other thing, and then, da-da-da-da. And there's an 8-minute video of the president of Ghana reading this, saying, and we believe that by the end of the year, God is going to, take this. So what we're planning with 7 being an outreach is, and Miles, we'd like to invite you into this project, is to outreach to the president of Ghana, outreach to the leaders in Nigeria who have spoken out in the same thing, and begin to use the courts of Ghana, the courts of Nigeria, whatever other courts of there are, the courts of Ireland. The courts of Ireland have come out very strong in this way, and Ireland is a signatory of the International Criminal Court.
Well, there's a new party in Ireland called the Irish Freedom Party, which I'm interested in seeing how that develops.
Oh yeah, yeah, and begin to use the courts, of the countries that have signed and ratified the International Criminal Code. And with it, what that means is that they have empowered their national courts with what's called universal jurisdiction to investigate, try, prosecute, and convict all of these war crimes, no matter where they occur. So they have the authority to try war crimes if they occur in Fort Detrick, Maryland, in Washington, D.C., in Wuhan, and to extradite these people. Now, here's a very interesting thing. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this is why I just maintain objectively. A lot of people are putting up Trump and worshiping as a hero, but on March 26, 2020, Donald Trump signed the 5G Act, which was to authorize 5G and expedite it in the United States, number one. Simultaneously with that, he signed the prohibition of the United States prohibiting International Criminal Court investigators from coming into the United States. Why is that?
That's a very good question.
Now, I think that they're using their chronovisors because they know that there's this gaping hole that they can be prosecuted for war crimes under the International Criminal Code in the courts of the nations that have signed and ratified that aren't controlled by the Illuminati, as you say, and that is Trump. See, Trump is the leader of Gary Peter Carlson calls it you've got the Draco faction, which is kind of, but then you've got the lizard faction, and that Trump is the lizard faction. So there are two different types of reptilians.
Yeah. But
it's not human. And we're of the human faction. And so we're going to the human courts to go after these. And that's a simple plan for citizen justice. So I'm going to send you, and I'm going to send Seven this.
Well, it would be interesting if I get that, because it's both of my emails have been cut off since this morning.
Well,
I'm sure I will. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you on Twitter at all, or?
I am, but I've got so many accounts. There's only 2 or 3 I pay attention to. Yeah. No, if you just say it, I'm sure I will get it. It's just that right now they're not working.
What I'll do is I can get it to Seven, and I think Seven can get it to you. It's probably
fine. Did you check your backlog, Miles?
No, I've had nothing. No update since 11 o'clock this morning. I mean,
no, I get that. I get that. But what I'm saying is that, sometimes if we have too many emails in the box, we have to delete some so that the new ones can come through. Because I have a whole situation where loads of emails are stacked up.
Well, it's interesting that I have got an update from eBay, which came in about 7:30.
Ah.
So,
but not.
So that's interesting. But I don't have anything from
anybody
because I'm using this from the other thing that I need to check on my other.
Okay, now 2 things I want to just say. First of all, I wanted to mention Italy in the equation, because Italy famously had this parliamentary session whereby an MP was lambasting the parliamentarians about the whole scamdemic being a hoax. That was recently. And then we also had somebody from Italy that was talking, a female, who was wanting to take action against Bill Gates. Now that's only like a couple of months ago. So Italy may well be open to this whole situation being addressed.
Those are very important things.
Sorry?
That's very important, that really. Yeah.
Yes, that's a very important thing. And then you have India in regards to the whole Bill Gates scenario with the polio vaccines, which ended up disabling thousands of children in India. So that's that thing, and them taking action for that. We did hear that Nigeria was taking action for the impoverishedness, the whole businesses going down and the whole catastrophe of this pandemic. That was a few months ago. Then we had some stuff come out about Brazil, because they found there was some MPs went to their local hospital where they said that there was 500 people that were sick and 200 people had recently died. And these Brazilian ministers stormed into their local hospital and found that there was nobody in there and the whole thing was a hoax. That was all filmed. They also turned over miles and miles and miles of coffins in Brazil and found that these coffins were all empty and it was all just for theatre. Yeah. They also went to a governor's house whereby they looked at the police in Brazil went to this governor's house and they saw that the public's funds had been taken and was stacked in his ceilings, and they basically had the police pulling the money down, all live on camera. So we have that situation in Brazil, and obviously in other countries. Now we've heard recently about Sweden. There was a report a few days ago. I don't know if anybody has any more information about that. Please come forward. But there was a lady that was saying that the Swedish people were being, there's no second wave, it's all 5G, they've said, and that the people are being genocided as we speak in Sweden. So I don't know. I'm trying to communicate with some of my Swedish contacts to find out how much of what has come out is true. But basically this thing is unraveling as we speak. We've had the doctors that have come forward to say, look, there is no reason for this vaccination and this whole situation. And people are missing the point. There's some people that are still talking about COVID and talking about immunity and health, not recognizing that this is a whole plan. They need this pandemic. They need it to be there in order to utilize it as a guise to cover up the pedophilia going on, the crimes against humanity. We've also heard recently, whether this is true or not, people need to investigate, but apparently Greece has recently classified pedophilia as a disability, enabling pedophiles to be able to claim benefits, state benefits in that country. And also kleptomania has been considered a disability. So it seems that Greece is being used as a safe haven for these psychopaths. So, you know, on that, we have that going on. So they're looking for an escape route. Some people said that Tom Hanks has gone to live in Greece, and then other people have said that's baloney. So I don't know about the Tom Hanks story.
I would caution a lot of that stuff as just, you know,
disinfo. Okay, well, anyway, there is that report came out a couple of days ago. Somebody sent that to me. So whether or not that's something worth looking into anyway in regards to Greece, because if Greece has decriminalized pedophilia, it means that people need to be very, very wary about going there to holiday, particularly at this time of year. This is holiday season. So I would do your investigations before you go anywhere near Greece right now, because if something happens to your children, they're not going to do anything about it, it appears. So, in short, there are a number of nations like Ghana, you mentioned Nigeria. There are a number of nations that leaders that people need to start joining together with. Those leaders who are being vocal and speaking up, we need for the people to support them, and we need other nations to join with them.
We need to deal with the infrastructure of how those leaders are supported, and their governmental infrastructures and how well they're supported.
When you say supported, do you mean financially?
Well, the infrastructure of any given leader needs a certain number of people who are getting things done, and whether their vice presidents and all that infrastructure, how well they are actually supported. I mean, one man could be taken out in a car accident. I mean, what's the actual backdoor climate of the infrastructures of those particular countries? How strong are they in that support? But I'll have to drift off shortly. Sorry,
yes, ladies. Well, we've come to the end of the show. We thank you so much, Miles, for your contribution.
I'm greatly honored to be asked, and also greatly, I mean, the stuff that Alfred just said there is pretty damn hot stuff. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
Well, we love to have you on again.
All of the links through 7.
Okay.
Yes. So now, is there any? Do you want to give people your websites? Obviously, you're the Basis Project, and you're a living legend.
I'm simply thebasisproject.org, and that's basis plural of base. And my email is tmilesj@yahoo.co.uk. And I've been doing this UFO stuff and looking at the transhumanization stuff for when I had hair, long time ago.
Oh wow! Well, it was an honor and our pleasure to have you on.
Well,
and we look forward to seeing you again. And perhaps next time you will come on with Piers Corbin.
Well, Piers is a busy man, and he has a lot to say. And he has had a very busy day today, I know, in London at Speaker's Corner. And there are people I know who travel a great deal of distance. I think Mark Steele was involved there. I think he was maybe going to be on tonight.
Oh, right. Okay.
But they've been very busy actively. Piers is taking this thing to the people. I really do think he's one of the most brilliant men, bucking the trend, saying what needs to be said on climate, 5G, fake news, the government, everything. He's saying it, and I absolutely think he's he's the man of the moment, Piers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just a question before we sign off, just on that. How much does it cross with what his brother does? Because obviously his brother was the leader of the Labour Party.
Yes.
I don't know if he still is.
Piers, I cannot speak for Piers, but when that question arises, Piers has always said that his brother, Jeremy, does what the Labour Party committee instructs him to do. Of course, instructed him to do. He's now past tense, but I do understand that Jeremy Corbyn disagrees with his brother's policies, and when you have two brothers in a family, I stay out of it.
Wow. Okay. Wow, makes sense. Well,
I think Piers is a committed, brilliant man with vision, and obviously it rubs off on his brother, who was a committed Labour Party leader and things. So obviously, they're two different coins out of the same box, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it's a great honour to have Piers Corbyn doing this and giving leadership to younger people who are being inspired, who are waking up and coming forth and getting on with this. We need the young people involved with this now, and there's some pretty sharp cookies in the box, and we need to get those people out there, but not necessarily disclosing their position, because it might be too dangerous for them. Just work behind the scenes and pay your council tax, pay your TV license. Don't unnecessarily show your hand, because it's very dangerous times we are living in now.
Yeah, but at the same time, the power is the people. So I have to say, the power is the people. And we have rogues in positions of power. Effectively, we no longer have any representatives in government from what we see.
We'd be completely disenfranchised by our government, which is, I'm not going to say anymore. I'll just get into trouble. It doesn't help.
I'll be happy to say it, because the abuse that has gone on has to change.
I voted for Boris. I wouldn't vote for him again. Let's put it that way.
I didn't vote for any of them, and I would never vote for them. Yeah. I think, the voting, people should stop putting their energy into that, and we need to start building the world that we want to live in, one that is fair, it's safe, it's, has human beings as a source of value rather than disvaluing us. So, keep speaking out, people. The power is the people's. These people that are harming us and harming humanity, and until they can be proven to be concerned for our well-being, these people have to go. They have to go.
Yes, so this is all life, all organic life in this world is at threat by these creatures.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Miles. Really, thank you so much for your wisdom, your insight, and your years and decades of work on the front line as well, exposing this stuff. As everybody knows, it's not easy because we're dealing with psychopaths and these people are belligerent. So, you know, we have to pay homage to those who have for many, many years put themselves out on the front line to bring this information and bring the truth to the people. And likewise to yourself, Alfred, I pay homage to you, and also Piers. That, you know, we can't thank them enough, because it's because of people like that sticking their lives on the line that we're getting the true information. So we say thank you to everybody out there. Please like, share and subscribe, and continue to watch for regular content. I'm actually moving from YouTube to Brighton, but it's the same name, Solutionaries Media Network on Brighton, so you'll be able to watch my videos there. Please subscribe and open channels. If you're a content creator, open a new channel, because we know that YouTube, Facebook, all of that, there have been meetings whereby they want to take down and these platforms to censor, to increase the censorship and stop us having a voice. So we have to gravitate towards the networks that are facilitating freedom of speech, particularly at this time. And as I said before, if anybody is technology driven, open more platforms. Please, we need more platforms, fund platforms, create platforms whereby we can speak the truth, because it's necessary. So I'll be on Solutionaries Media Network on Brighton.com. Is it, Alfred? It's Brighton.com.
Yes.
And
yes.
there's also TrueTube.com, which we'll be talking a bit about that in the future. So for now, we say thank you. Stay safe, everybody. Keep sounding the alarms. We need to make an uproar to make sure that this is shut down. Yeah? Peace and love to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.